Hey guys, welcome back to Reserved Investments on YouTube. So here's a question for you guys, and this is how I'm going to start this wonderful video with Jim Fresh Sean, filming this at 12 midnight in my wonderful basement office. Value, is it a fact or is it subjective? Let me answer that for you. In the antiques and collectibles trade, value is 100% abstract, it is 100% subjective, and it is not a fact. When you look at antiques and collectibles, I don't care if you're looking at them on a dealer website. I don't care if you're on an auction site prepared to bid on some of these items. All their value is subjective. It is not fact-based. This is in stark contrast to that of Wall Street. If you log in to your brokerage account and you want to buy shares of AT&T at present time, and AT&T stock is selling for $25 a share, and you click the buy button at that particular time, you are going to pay $25 for those shares of stock. If at any given time that you own those particular shares of stock, you want to know what they're selling for in the open market, all you got to do is log right into your brokerage account or look at what AT&T stock is selling for on the open market. The value is factual. It is not subjective. It is not abstract. In the antiques and collectibles trade, in the overall market for a lot of these alternate assets that we all know and love, the market value is abstract. It is not factual. And every time I present this talking point, there's always some Timmy, Kimmy, or Poindexter that comes into the comment section and he'll screenshot a dealer's inventory and he'll say, no, Sean, if I want to buy this comic book, this coin, this Pokemon card, this vintage toy, whatever it is, I can buy it right now from this dealer for X number of dollars. Therefore, you're 100% wrong. And what I have to explain to that individual is that is not a finite price. You can search on auction sites, you can search on other dealer sites, and you may come across that same item selling for a different price point. As a matter of fact, if you have that same item and you consign it to an auction site, you're most likely going to get a completely different price than what that dealer is selling that identical item for. You must understand this concept to be successful in the antiques and collectibles trade. What is it that I tell a lot of you guys? A lot of you guys, you're logging on the collecting forums, you're listening to a lot of hype-driven content creators out there because we all know those videos get the most views. Reserved Investments doesn't have 100,000 subscribers. Reserved Investments isn't going to have 100,000 subscribers ever on YouTube. Most likely, I will either retire or delete the channel by the time I even get to 20,000 subscribers, the way that this is going. Going to be 100% honest. Another video coming all about that. But until that video hits, just know that most likely the YouTube algorithm rewards hype-driven content more than factual content. So when you hear me talk about value and you see a little Timmy come into the comment section and say, you're wrong, value is factual. In the antiques and collectibles trade, value is 100% subjective. A lot of you guys will come to me and you'll say, Sean, I have a room full of video games or vintage Pokemon cards or vintage Magic the Gathering cards or vintage toys or whatever it is, whatever collectible you like. It could even be, if you're a baby boomer watching this, it could be vintage toy robots, it could be Lionel toy trains, and you'll come to me and you'll say, Sean, I added up the value of this entire collection and my collection's worth 100 grand. And I say, okay, let's assume you're 100% correct. You added up the value of your collection and you believe you could get $100,000 for it. Do you have any idea how much time, work, and effort you are going to be putting in to selling that collection for top dollar on the open market? And I don't think that people step back and realize this. I honestly believe, guys, most people have cognitive bias. Most people have an emotional attachment to these items that they need to watch a lot of hype-driven content to try to convince themselves that everything they're buying is either a quote-unquote asset or a good investment. And I've said this before, I'm going to say it again. A lot of you guys are buying items in the overall antiques and collectibles trade that you think are good investments and or assets that are actually liabilities. And there's a lot of people out there that don't understand what I mean by that. And it all comes back to the concept of value. Value in any antique or collectible. Let me state that again. In any antique or collectible, it doesn't matter if we're talking sophisticated high-end art, doesn't matter if we're talking rare coins, my love, doesn't matter if we're talking video games, computer games, whatever it is that you collect, value in the antiques and collectibles trade is 100% speculative. That's why when an item sells at auction for record price, and you look in your collection and you got a smile on your face and you go, hey, I own that exact same item. That item just sold for a record price and I own one just like it. I really hate to tell you, item that you have in your collection did not change value-wise. The item in your collection was not the one that sold in that particular auction. Now you can try to be a Timmy and you can argue with another Timmy and say, hey, because this particular item that I had just sold at auction for X number of dollars, that means if you want to buy mine, I will only sell you mine for that particular price. Now, anybody who pays that price for that item, most likely they are not educated in the antiques and collectibles trade because they would realize that value is subjective. It doesn't matter that your item, the exact one, just like it, sold at auction for X number of dollars. Your item was not in that particular auction. Your item's sitting in your collection. Therefore, the price is subjective, guys. Please learn this concept. I am so tired of people coming to me saying, hey, Sean, my collection is worth X. At any given time, I could liquidate it for this amount. And I have to interrupt them. And I would say, you mean to tell me that you're quoting me the wholesale amount? And you're stating that if you would liquidate the collection, that's what you're going to get for it? Because I strongly disagree. Most people that quote the amount of value their collection has usually give a high number. They do not give a low number. Most people literally overshoot the value of their collection in most cases. Now, there are instances, everybody's different. There are people out there that literally like to actually give a lower number than what their collection is truly worth, just because it brings them a sense of joy. If they would go to sell it at auction, most likely if they got more for it, it would make them feel better. Now, there are 3 different types of value in the overall antiques and collectibles trade. This is something that you're not going to hear on any of those hype-driven YouTube channels. Does anybody know what they are? The first is insurance replacement value. Anytime you hear insurance replacement value, be very cautious. This is usually a very high number. This is usually a number that people use to get insurance on an item, because if that item ever gets lost, stolen, or damaged, the insurance company then has to shell out a check for what that item is actually valued at the replacement level. Meaning, if you were to log on to a high-end dealer site and you had to replace that item ASAP, the number that you would pay is usually corresponding to the insurance replacement value. It is by no means a low number. It is by no means a bargain price. In most cases, that number is actually an over-exaggerated price for that very reason. Now, the second price or value that you're going to hear about in the overall antiques and collectibles trade is something called fair market value. Well, what is fair market value? Fair market value can simply be defined as a price that both a buyer and a seller would most likely agree upon. For instance, let's say that you collect Pokemon cards, and a Pokemon card is seen selling on the open market anywhere from $1,500 to $1,700 in the last 6 months. So if you would chart the auction completed price history of that particular item, you would see sales that sold for $1,500 all the way up to $1,700 and maybe some in the middle. So if a buyer and seller got together and you wanted to do fair market value, you could say to the potential buyer, hey, I have this card. I see it's been selling between $1,500 to $1,700. If you give me $1,600 right now, it's yours. And in most cases, if that buyer is reasonable, he'll say, you know what? Yeah, I've seen it sell from $1,500 to $1,700. I know I'm not getting a steal. I'm not getting it for closer to $1,500, but I'm not paying $1,700 for it either. I'll gladly give you $1,600. That is fair market value for that particular item. It is agreed upon price that's fair for both a buyer and seller at any point in time for a particular antique and collectible, value-wise. Now, the final measure of value is something that we call wholesale value, also liquidation value. This, as it sounds, is a very low number. Let's say that you have a rare coin. Let's say that you have a comic book that may or may not be graded by CGC. Let's say that you have an antique that has value. You know it has value, and you have a dealer that's interested, and the dealer is ready to give you 60, maybe 70%, if you're lucky, of the full market price of that particular item. Since he is buying it at the wholesale level, that is usually referred to as the wholesale price or the liquidation price. That is another measure of value in the overall antiques and collectibles trade. If you get anything out of this video, please understand that value in any antique or collectible market is always subjective and abstract. It is not concrete and factual. Those of you that are going on collecting sites that are coming in the comment section stating you can prove what an item is worth 100% of the time, you are full of shit. I'm calling you out. Value in the antiques and collectibles trade is always and will always be subjective. It doesn't matter how many different pricing platforms we have, how many different ways we have to record prices. Price in these markets will always be speculative and subjective. Learn that going in, and you will have a hell of a lot better time if you are an investor than some of these speculators that are coming into these markets repeating false truths over and over again. Thank you for watching. Let me know your thoughts. Please let me know what you think about this video in the comment section below. Thanks, guys.